You're live.
Greetings. My name is John Gabriel, and this is the New Calculus channel. And today I have a special guest who I'm going to interview. He is Dr. James MacLean. And would you like to say hi, James?
Hey folks, this is James MacLean. I'm a Triple E undergraduate and I did a PhD in electrical and electronic engineering. My specialty was control systems. And as a result, you can imagine I've experienced a lot of maths. And we're going to discuss hopefully some interesting things today with John here. Okay? Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. So what was your engagement with mathematics from your degrees? More or less, just a summary.
Right, so as a summary, engineering, even physics, things like that, it's effectively applied maths, applied maths, applied maths the whole way through. You don't really get necessarily a deep understanding of the maths itself, but you do quite often get a very good and deep understanding of like physical phenomena and how to use the maths. But there's a big difference, right? You have how does the maths actually work versus using the results. So, as you can imagine, in Triple E, we have a lot of incredible results from what we would call mainstream maths. That has been discussed many times on the new Discord channel. Now, in mainstream maths, these results, they work incredibly. They're beautiful in many cases, especially linear algebra, used a lot in Triple E when you're solving systems of equations, systems of differential equations mainly, but all these ideas, they're incredible. So I have a lot of experience of applying these ideas. So that's generally kind of my main engagement. I've done lots of things like Z transforms, Laplace transforms. These are all standard features of a Triple E degree. Not every engineering type will necessarily get Z transforms. In fact, I think that's mainly reserved for Triple E people. But yeah, I have quite a reasonable amount of experience with at least using the maths anyways. Thanks.
And so, right, and so you've used Fourier series as well. I
Oh,
guess that's
Fourier
also a large
transforms,
part.
Fourier series, the
Yeah.
lot you can imagine. Loads
Okay.
of like discrete Fourier transform, you name it, we've done it. Continuous time Fourier transform, these things, use them all the time, all the time.
And just for the viewers, you graduated with honors, right?
Yes, I graduated with a first class honors. Yes.
That's fantastic. That's really good. So, how did you find the new calculus channel?
Right. So I generally get recommended, maths channels, physics channels, all these sorts of things on YouTube. And by sheer
Hmm.
dumb luck, there was a video recommended to me on the top right of this. You've got your main box here. You maybe got an advert or something here, and then you've got like recommendations at the side. Now, I saw a video. It was something named roughly ancient Greek trigonometric ratios or something like that, right? I clicked on this and I clicked on it. I was like, interesting. And I just see a guy with well, I say not a guy, but there's a GeoGebra applet just sitting there, and he shows an alternative way to create a definition for sine, for example, and he shows all other trigonometric ratios as well. And I sat there going like, right, there's no way that this man has just shared a closed form expression for sine. Doesn't matter, if it has square roots in it or squares or whatever, right? An actual closed form representation. And I sat there genuinely in awe, thinking, oh, he just gave this for free. I don't get it. Like, who does this, right? So I sat there going, I was sitting there like genuinely astounded, and I messed with it myself. I wrote a little MATLAB script to test, cases, just test the document out, and I was genuinely very impressed. If you think about all the effort that goes in, like think of all the algorithms that are used to find the sine of a value. You've got the Cordic algorithm where let's say you want sine of 45 degrees, you overshoot, undershoot, overshoot, undershoot, and eventually you converge to whatever sine 45 is going to be, right? Okay. And
To the
here we,
limit, right? To the
what's
limit. Yeah.
exactly, right?
To
So
the limit. Yeah.
effectively a limit, but like you've
Mm.
got all these algorithms that spend so much effort to get precise. When you type in the sine of 10, so obviously you put radians in, but you have functions in MATLAB that let you put in degrees. You can write sine d open brackets, right? So you put in
Yeah.
10 degrees, And there's a lot of effort that goes behind getting a precise value up to some precision, double precision that you need for the sign of something. And here we have, right, an actual closed form expression. Now, don't get me wrong, it has a square root in it, so you have to, there's like machine constraints that you have to consider here. But that blew my mind because you think of all the effort on Taylor series as an example, and all these approximate, sine x roughly equal to x and small angles. Not saying that's necessarily a bad approximation for simulating systems, right? But I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. So that's how I found the channel initially.
Excellent. So you're of course also aware that Taylor was a brilliant mathematician and
Yes.
that he got his series directly from Newton's interpolation polynomial, using limits on top of Newton's interpolation polynomial. Is
Yes,
that
yeah,
correct?
I was aware of that
Yeah, yeah.
actually.
Okay.
The one thing I did find fascinating was no, that's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah, all good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's cool. Yeah.
Okay. So uh, what was your initial impression of the new calculus channel and its contents?
Right.
You can be as honest as you like.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So after I'd watched that ancient Greek trigonometric video that you did, I was obviously
yeah.
very impressed. I didn't immediately watch a video on the back of that because, funnily enough, I actually had to go teach some students not so long after actually before I
Mm.
watched it, and I sort of talked to them about this thing that I just saw lying on a YouTube video. This closed form expression for sine. They seem to enjoy it, but I mean, with students, they kind of what's the word? They just want to survive and get their degree and walk out. So they weren't super, as excited as I was about seeing something like that. But either way,
Right.
the impression was so. Truth be told, when I started watching some of the other videos, I sort of clicked random ones. It's like, oh, what's this about epsilon delta, for example, right? I
Yeah.
genuinely thought I found it funny initially because it's like this guy is like really ripping into um, we'll say
Mainstream.
mainstream maths concepts
Yeah.
quite brutally. I was like, right, this is. I genuinely found it quite funny initially. I was like, this is actually. It got a few
Yeah.
chuckles out of me, but it did make
Yeah.
me think. Right, okay, well, is what the guy is this guy, this John Gabriel, whoever he is, actually saying things that make sense? So the initial impression was genuinely funny. Now, I mean this in no disrespect. Once I'd watched maybe 10
Mm.
videos or whatever, the first thing that came to my mind was this guy feels like the Terry A. Davis of maths. Unfortunately, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Obviously, like I haven't, said that
Yeah.
this way
Yeah.
until now, but that's what came to my mind. It's like, but I could tell the guy wasn't like Terry in many ways. It was more just a case of like this kind of like somebody who's I could just see the intelligence very quickly. Actually, now this one thing that you may find interesting is usually if I click on a video, I can ascertain within a few minutes if it's worth watching or not very quickly. I mean, many people can, but like virtually for pretty much every video I watched you do, I was sat there
Mm.
basically completing the video, and I don't complete many videos, just for the record. So initial
That's
impression was
amazing.
funny. I did actually find it
Mm.
quite amusing in at points. I thought
Mm.
guy is clearly smart. Um, Very interesting. And then when I found
Mm.
out that there's all this content he's produced, I was like, there's a lot of effort that's gone behind this kind of deal. So that was kind of my initial impression. And the contents I thought were quite interesting because that actually exposed me to a more, what we'll say, some of the finer points of real analysis as well, right? So keep in
Mm.
mind, in engineering, you don't necessarily get a real analysis course, right? You'll get applied maths, right? You
Yes.
get Laplace transforms, you get differential equations, you get all these useful things. But you don't necessarily get told
Mm.
about Cauchy sequences, dedekind cuts,
Yeah.
for example. You don't get any of this because it's not necessary, right? And when you write in
Correct.
an engineering paper, R to the n maps to R, we all know what you're roughly talking about. I think every engineer basically knows that really you're using rational numbers or you're using machine representations of rational numbers because that's all you care about, right? So I always thought of, I mean, maybe incorrectly so, I thought of real numbers originally as just a label to say any possible number, basically, whatever that may be. So that was my naive interpretation as an engineer, right? So
Mm.
you don't necessarily get a formal upbringing in this. So then I also investigated real analysis myself as well. So I went to Tau's PDF, for example, Tau's analysis.
That's Terence Tao, right?
Terence Tau,
Terence
yes,
Tao.
exactly. I had a look at Rudin as well. I've had a look at quite a few things just to get an understanding of like where these guys sit, what sort of things are discussed,
Mm.
all these ideas. And then obviously I looked at your videos as well. So the contents were very interesting, and I potentially actually controversial in many cases. Not just because you're swearing either, but genuinely, I think some of the content here is interesting to say the least. Yeah. So that's my initial
So
impression.
thanks. That's a great answer. Thanks very much. And I think you've answered the next one also
Mhm.
partly. But you know, if you when you first saw these videos, did you were you initially struggling with the concepts, or did you find them easy to grasp? You found them easier, right? Obviously, because you've had a training in, you had a PhD in Triple E, so
Mhm.
it couldn't have been difficult for you. And then didn't you at one stage think, well, why is John Gabriel getting all this flack? You know,
Yeah.
and you can answer that in any way you want.
So to do with the trying the new calculus, okay.
Yeah,
So effectively, what it was I mean, everybody knows how to differentiate 2x. I say everybody. I mean, anybody who's gone through like even a mainstream, whatever education,
right.
whether that be for physics, engineering, maths, whatever. We all know how to differentiate 2x. So I tried these things myself. I got the pen and paper out, just sat there trying what he's suggesting. Made MATLAB scripts to like test things as well, test different test cases, and I have to admit, I found it very satisfying how the mean value theorem actually really does dictate how this works, right? So I think one of the
Mhm.
most important results here is there's this idea in real analysis where they want to fill in gaps between rational numbers. That's a huge important part. They want to show continuity and all these sorts of ideas.
Mhm.
And it was fascinating to see the new calculus definition, which is basically just the mean value theorem in effect, right? Produce
Exactly.
effectively covers all the interior points on an interval via a telescoping sun. And I sat there going like, this is beyond satisfying. This is like a genuinely incredible answer to what would call the tangent line problem. So to come back to trying it, I tried it. I tried a lot of this stuff fairly soon into seeing some of your videos. Just gave it a shot, alternative viewpoint, see how it goes. Obviously, I know many of the answers for basic maths problems, so I was able to compare and contrast, and it all seemed to match up. I really didn't have too many problems on that front. However, there was one area that I really did struggle once I'd watched some of your videos. Now, I am an avid user of Laplace transforms and have been to solve differential equations. The classic thing you learn. They work, right? I was sitting there going like, these
Mm.
things work, right? So why is
Absolutely.
John sitting here slagging limits? Now, I was very torn in this. I was like really torn in this. Like, right, this guy has like actually helped my understanding of maths incredibly at a fundamental level, especially with the arithmetic ones. Surprisingly, like people take arithmetic for granted. Genuinely, I mean that seriously. You get taught how to do it, and then you don't really think much of it. But it's like, why do these things work? So I got lots of insight there. But I'm sitting here going like, he's slagging limits, limit theory, s equals lim s. Like, but this Laplace stuff works. What's the problem? Like,
Absolutely.
I don't understand the problem here, right?
Mm.
And it turns out,
Mm.
I think a lot of people might have accidentally done this who've seen your channel. I think people
Mm.
will hear the way that you've slagged stuff, okay? They'll
Mhm.
hear the way you've slagged stuff, and then they like generalize outwards, right? You're slagging particular ways in which limits have been used to justify things, not the
Yeah.
limits themselves. Now, I messed that up in my own head, I can't lie. And I think many other people who've seen your channel may have done the same, to be totally frank. I think
Well,
for me, it was Laplace. For somebody, it might have been, I don't know, S equals lim s discussion. Like that might have
yes.
been one that messed up like a mathematician who's seen your stuff, right? It's the way in which the limit is used, right? So when I came to
Mm.
that realization, it's like there's nothing wrong with a Laplace transform, of course. You are just
No.
using the limiting value to do to do the work effectively, and that's fine. There's nothing actually wrong with that. But I was sitting there, sat there, like kind of going, right. So is Laplace bullshit in effect, right? Well, I can't be because I know it damn well works, right? But no, that's not what
Yes.
he said. It's very important
Yeah.
to make that clear to everybody watching this, just for the record. Okay? Yeah.
I feel a little guilty. I feel a little guilty about that because, yes, I should have actually mentioned those things. It's just
I think
that
so.
from my point of view, yeah, from my point of view, I was trying to get across the concept that in calculus, such as the definition of the derivative and the integral, you don't actually need limits. And they're not about limits. And also, whereas you can use your Laplace transforms, etc., in many cases you can't use anything but numeric integration. So you don't
Yes.
really have a primitive function.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's probably one of my weaknesses is first of all, I'm not really a natural presenter,
Hmm.
and I don't want to spend too much time talking about myself, but I'd like to ask you one final question,
Sure.
if
Sure.
that's okay. And it's not in the uh, list of questions that you gave me to ask, but
Hmm.
just answer it as best as you can. How have you found dealing with me? Do you think I am mentally disturbed, maybe a psychopath, maybe borderline personality, perhaps a narcissist? Any of those things. What can you say to my viewers about that?
Right. I will come back to one of the things I said earlier. So initial impression gave me Terry A. Davis vibes. Now, as it goes, I don't think you're actually that type at all. I think the two things that you do share is general high intelligence, to say the least. I think both of you guys were incredible on that front, right? Or are incredible.
Mm.
Now, what's to answer that question in particular? Um, Narcissists, I think, right, and I thought this at the time before I got to actually speak to you more. I thought this guy is saying things like I'm the greatest mathematician that's ever lived and all these things, honestly, just for notoriety purposes. I think you did it as like a kind of like a let's try and draw people
Mm.
in. So like people
Yeah.
people quite like I think people whether they like it or not get attracted to conflicting um, viewpoints. And if you cement yourself as I'm the greatest man that's ever damn well lived, you know,
Mm.
you you're going to get engagement, both very positive
Mm.
and extremely negative at the same time. So no,
Yes.
I don't think you are any of those things. I think you
Mm.
played it up to the camera, at least from what I thought initially before I actually spoke to you more. Um,
Mm.
Narcissist, maybe I don't know. I don't think so. I think maybe there's a hint of it somewhere. I don't know, but like from what I could tell, no. I think that it felt like to me that you're playing up to the camera. But the thing is when you attack, say somebody who's gone through real analysis, they've got their undergraduate degree, and they are genuinely probably smart, and you attack real analysis, and they think, well, this stuff works. I can prove all these theorems, all these ideas. They're going to be up on edge from the beginning, right? And then when you pile on things like, oh, I'm the greatest mathematician that's ever lived, you will make an enemy very
Mm.
quickly. Sort of deal,
Yeah.
right? You will make enemies very quickly. Now, like that has pros and it has cons. It's like if you really believe, I not even believe, but like your stuff works, it flat out works, right? But this style that you've
Mm-hmm.
gone for, where it's been quite aggressive, is
Yeah.
you catch what's the phrase? You catch more flies with what was it? Honey? Oh no, honey. You know what I'm trying to
Honey,
say?
honey, with honey.
Yeah, whatever the damn old phrase is, right? So it's like you've gone for
Yes.
the right. We're pouring vinegar on this kind of deal. That's what you've done, right? So
Mm.
I
Okay.
think going forward, actually, I think going forward, being softer is actually maybe the play. Maybe not for some people need harsh love, right? In general, right? But
Yes. Yes.
some people definitely do need that. But I think going forward, having more positive kind of outlook on these things is, or like at least presentation style, will help a lot. Listen, some of your videos are totally
Mm.
positive. Like there's not really
Mm.
calling like a mainstream mathematician a baboon in some of them, but usually something comes up at some
Yeah.
point like that. You know, it's funny,
Well,
but yeah.
yeah, I can answer that A lot of
Hmm.
those things come up because of frustration, you know,
Of course. Yeah.
because I have dealt a lot with mainstream math academics. I don't consider them mathematicians, by the way,
Yes,
but I
you've
have
said
to
this.
be
Yeah.
very candid. Yeah, because in order to be a mathematician, you need to produce great works. And I'm not convinced that writing a dissertation is enough to make you a mathematician. You
Right.
know,
Okay. Yeah.
not even close. So the types that really get to me are those who get on the channel
Hmm.
and spew out their ignorance and stupidity. But anyway, that was a great answer on your part,
Thank you.
and I would very much like to thank you for coming on my channel.
No problem. Thanks for
And
having me.
I hope that we can have more chats like this. In
Yep.
fact, even make it regular and have other mainstream academics come on to my channel where I can actually debate them on the concept of number
Hmm.
and limits and all these other things, which, as far as I'm concerned, they don't understand properly and never have.
Interesting. Yeah.
But
Okay.
they've learned, like yourself, they've learned rote fashion. You know,
Hmm.
there are many things that you learned from me which you didn't learn in the mainstream,
Yeah. I've learned
and so
so much. It's actually been
yeah,
very very enlightening to say the least. It's been
that's
very
great.
useful. The way that I look at
Thank you
things
so
now
much.
is genuinely different when it comes to so many topics, and in a positive way. In a very positive way.
Right,
Um,
right.
but so once again,
Okay, well,
I'll just before we sign off, I will highlight that if you do engage with some of John's content, don't necessarily find it that you'll get it the first time or second time or third time. Things take practice. Doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. These things take practice. You can sit and watch a mean value theorem video, right, and look at what he does. You can go look at a mainstream maths one as well, but unless you actually sit down with pen and paper and do it yourself, or make a little MATLAB script or Python script to do these things and experience them, you won't get the full you won't get the full understanding or realization of what John's saying out of it. But this also goes in general for just anything, right? You've got to practice at it. Okay. Cheers.
right. You don't become an expert by just reading stuff. You have to practice it.
Yeah.
So, if you're not already a subscriber to my channel, please become a subscriber. Click like, follow me on academia.edu, and maybe even join my members only channel where I share a lot of information I don't share with others. And Dr. MacLean already knows that I do that. So he can vouch for me on that score.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it. Till next time, folks, this is New Calculus Channel, and I'm John Gabriel. Goodbye.
Thank you, folks. Cheers.